The fortress of Kravenhold rises from black stone, its towers piercing storm clouds that never disperse. Lightning illuminates battlements where no guards walk. Rain falls upward here, defying nature, droplets ascending toward the churning sky before vanishing into crackling energy. This is the seat of the Arcanum, the council of 7 mages who have ruled the kingdom of Valdris for 3 centuries. Their power is absolute, their magic unquestioned, their laws carved in blood and bone. Until tonight, a figure in a crimson cloak moves through the eastern courtyard, boots silent on stones that hum with residual enchantments. The intruder's hands glow with pale blue light, tracing symbols in the air that unweave the detection wards thread by thread. Each gesture is precise, practiced. This is not the first fortress breached. The great doors of the council chamber stand 40 feet tall, forged from iron and human sacrifice. Runes crawl across their surface like living things, pulsing with the heartbeats of those whose blood was mixed into the metal during the casting. The intruder places both palms against the doors. The blue light intensifies, spreading across the iron in spiderweb patterns. If you're enjoying this story, please click the like button, subscribe, and tell us where you are watching from. The runes shriek, an audible sound of magical alarms triggering, and the doors explode inward with enough force to shatter stone. Inside, the 7 members of the Arcanum rise from their obsidian thrones. They do not look surprised. They look ready. The High Magister stands at the center, ancient beyond reckoning, skin like parchment stretched over bone, eyes burning with emerald fire. When he speaks, his voice echoes from the throats of the stone gargoyles lining the chamber walls. You were expected, child of the fallen house. The intruder throws back her hood. A young woman, barely 20 summers, with silver hair and eyes that shift between violet and gold. Scars mark her face, ritualistic cuts that form a language of suffering. Then you know why I've come. The High Magister descends from his throne, robes trailing shadows that move independently of their wearer. We know you seek vengeance for your family. We know you've spent 5 years learning the forbidden arts. We know you believe yourself powerful enough to challenge us. The young woman's hands ignite with crimson flames that writhe like serpents. I don't believe. I know. The High Magister smiles. It is not a pleasant expression. Then let us educate you on the difference between knowledge and wisdom. He gestures. The other 6 magisters raise their hands in unison. The attack comes from all directions simultaneously. Pillars of white fire erupt from the floor, walls crack open to release swarms of shadow wasps. The ceiling itself transforms into a churning vortex of crystalline blades. The air becomes hostile, thickening into invisible chains that wrap around limbs and throat. The young woman doesn't defend. She attacks. Her crimson flames expand outward in a sphere of annihilation, consuming the white fire, incinerating the shadow wasps mid-flight, melting the crystal blades before they descend. The invisible chains shatter. She rises 3 feet off the ground, hair whipping in winds that exist only around her. The chamber trembles. Ancient stones groan. The obsidian thrones crack. One of the magisters, a woman whose face is hidden behind a mask of woven moonlight, steps forward. Her voice is silk over steel. Impressive. You've learned from the Nethermancers. But their art comes with a price. The young woman's eyes flash gold. I've already paid. Then pay again. The masked magister claps her hands once. The sound reverberates like a bell tolling the end of days. Reality fractures. The chamber splits into 7 overlapping versions of itself, each occupying the same space but existing in different moments. In one, the young woman burns. In another, she drowns. In a third, she ages into dust. In a fourth, she's torn apart by invisible hands. In the remaining 3, she simply ceases to exist, unwritten from the fabric of causality itself. But in all 7 realities, she's already moving, already casting. Her hands weave patterns that leave afterimages in the air, sigils that weren't meant to be combined, words and languages that predate humanity. Blood wells from her nose, ears, eyes. The price of forbidden magic manifesting in her flesh. The 7 realities collapse back into one. When they do, the masked magister staggers. Her mask cracks, revealing a face beneath that's older than the fortress itself, scarred by centuries of magical warfare. You shouldn't be able to counter that, The masked magister whispers. I learned from the best. From the mages you murdered when I was 15. The high magister's expression darkens. Your parents were traitors. They sought to dismantle the Arcanum, to return magic to the common rabble. They would have destroyed everything we've built. They sought to free those you've enslaved. The thousands whose life force you drain to maintain your immortality. The children you steal from villages to fuel your rituals. The land itself, which withers under your rule. The land thrives under our protection. Another magister interjects. This one a young man whose beauty is inhuman, perfected through centuries of self-modification. Without us, the kingdom would fall to chaos, to petty warlords and supernatural entities that hunger for mortal flesh. The young woman's flames intensify until they burn black, a color fire should never achieve. Without you, the kingdom would learn to protect itself. Magic isn't your property. It never was. She thrusts both hands forward. The black flames become a torrent, a river of annihilation that crosses the chamber in an instant. Two magisters raise shields, barriers of solidified air and crystallized time, but the black flames don't strike the barriers. They pass through them as though they don't exist, because to the black flames, they don't. This is void fire, the absence of existence itself, and it doesn't destroy its targets. It erases them. The two magisters scream as the flames touch them. Not in pain. There is no pain in non-existence, but in primal terror as they feel themselves being unwritten. Their shields collapse. Their bodies begin to fade. The High Magister's hand shoots out. A single word erupts from his lips in a language that predates the kingdom, the continent, perhaps the world itself. Time stops. Not slows. Stops. Absolutely. Completely. The void fire freezes midair. The two fading magisters halt their dissolution. The young woman hangs suspended in her casting stance, expression fierce, eyes ablaze. The High Magister walks through the frozen chamber, studying his adversary like a scholar examining a particularly interesting specimen. He circles her, noting the scars, the way her magic still pulses despite temporal stasis, the determination carved into every line of her face. You're stronger than your parents, he observes conversationally, though no one can hear him in the silence of stopped time. You've sacrificed more, learned darker arts, but you've made a critical error. He reaches out, fingers hovering an inch from her forehead. You came alone. Time resumes with a thunderclap that shatters every window in the fortress. The void fire completes its trajectory, but the two magisters are no longer in its path. They've been moved, repositioned by the High Magister during the temporal freeze. The flames strike empty air and dissipate. The young woman lands, blood streaming from fresh wounds that opened during the time stop. The price of resisting temporal manipulation manifests across her body in cuts that spell out the cost in the old tongue. She doesn't pause. Can't pause. Pausing means death. Her hands blur through a new sequence. The floor beneath the magisters erupts with thorn vines that grow with unnatural speed, each thorn dripping with essence distilled from nightmares. The vines wrap, constrict, pierce. One magister is caught, dragged down, pulled into the stone itself as the floor becomes liquid. His screams echo briefly before being cut off as the stone re-solidifies around him, entombing him in the foundation of his own fortress. 6 remain. The beautiful magister's form blurs, multiplying into 17 identical versions of himself, each one casting a different spell. Lightning forks from one. Ice crystallizes from another. A third unleashes a swarm of spectral moths whose wings drip madness. A fourth conjures chains of singing steel that seek flesh with sentient hunger. The young woman's response is brutally simple. She claps her hands together, and the sound becomes physical force, a shockwave that ripples outward with enough power to crack the foundation stones. 16 of the 17 beautiful magisters shatter like glass. Illusions, revealed and destroyed. The real one stumbles, ears bleeding, his perfect features marred by the cost of maintaining so many duplicates. Before he can recover, she's on him. Not with magic this time. With a blade, obsidian, carved with runes that drink life itself. The blade plunges into his chest. His eyes widen. He grasps her wrist, his grip still strong, still deadly. His other hand touches her face almost gently. You're magnificent, he whispers. A shame you chose the wrong side. There are no sides. Only tyrants and those who resist them. He smiles. Blood bubbles at his lips. Then you understand nothing of what we've prevented. The horrors we've held at bay. His grip loosens. He falls. Doesn't rise. 5 remain. The remaining magisters surround her now, forming a pentagon with her at its center. They don't speak. Don't need to. They've worked together for centuries, their magic synchronized beyond the need for words. They raise their hands in unison, and the real assault begins. The floor, walls, and ceiling all become hostile. Stone transforms into grasping hands, reaching, clutching, pulling. The air ignites with spontaneous combustion, burning without fuel, without heat, without mercy. Gravity reverses, inverts, multiplies. Space folds in on itself, distances becoming meaningless as the chamber exists simultaneously at every size from infinitesimal to infinite. And through it all, the young woman endures. Her magic shifts, adapts, counters. She doesn't try to overcome their assault. She redirects it. The grasping hands tear at each other. The combusting air feeds her own flames. The twisted gravity becomes a weapon, crushing anything not anchored to her will. But there are 5 of them and 1 of her. Mathematics is unkind. A hand of stone catches her ankle. Another her wrist. Fire that cannot be quenched sears across her back. Gravity inverts her organs, trying to pull them from her body through her skin. She screams. Not in surrender. In rage. The scream becomes sound, becomes force, becomes catastrophe. Windows don't just shatter, they cease to have ever existed. Walls crack with fractures that spread backward through time. The obsidian thrones crumble to dust, and the dust crumbles to nothing. The pentagon of magisters breaks as 2 are thrown backward by the sheer force of her fury made manifest. They strike walls hard enough to crater stone. 3 remain. The High Magister, the Masked Magister, and 1 other. An elderly woman who hasn't spoken or moved throughout the battle, sitting perfectly still on her throne even as it crumbles around her. The young woman pulls herself free from the grasping hands, leaving skin and flesh behind. She doesn't seem to notice. Pain has become background noise. There is only forward, only vengeance, only justice. The High Magister's eyes narrow. He makes a gesture, and the elderly woman on the throne opens her eyes for the first time. They are empty. Not metaphorically, actually empty. Hollow sockets that contain only darkness deeper than absence. When she speaks, her voice comes from everywhere and nowhere, from the past and future simultaneously, from the stones and the air and the blood pooling on the broken floor. Child of the fallen house, you have fought well. You have killed 3 of the Arcanum, an achievement unmatched in 300 years. But you will go no further. The young woman spits blood. Why? Because you'll stop me? No, because you'll stop yourself. The elderly woman stands. As she does, the darkness in her eye sockets spreads, spilling out like ink, like oil, like the absence of light itself. It pools around her feet, spreads across the floor, climbs the walls. And in the darkness, shapes move. Familiar shapes. The young woman's breath catches. 2 figures emerge from the darkness. A man and a woman, middle-aged, wearing the robes of respected mages. Their faces are kind, even in death. Even in the twisted mockery of existence the elderly magister has forced upon them. Her parents. No, she whispers. The elderly magister's expression is unreadable. We kept their souls. Insurance against this very moment. They exist between death and oblivion. Their consciousness preserved in eternal torment, waiting. Always waiting. Stop this. The reanimated corpses of her parents move toward her. Their mouths open, and her mother's voice emerges, distorted but recognizable. Daughter, why did you let us die? Why didn't you save us? Her father's corpse reaches for her with rotting hands. You were weak. You hid while we burned. You've always been weak. The young woman's flames gutter and die. The crimson light in her hands fades. Tears cut tracks through the blood and ash on her face. This isn't real. You're not them. We're exactly them, her mother's corpse says. What they became after you abandoned them. What they are now because of your failure. The High Magister watches with cold satisfaction. This is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing how to kill your enemies. Wisdom is understanding that some weapons cannot be countered. The young woman falls to her knees. The obsidian blade slips from nerveless fingers. Around her, The fortress continues to crumble from the magical destruction, but she no longer notices. Her parents' corpses stand over her, mouths moving in continuous litany of accusations, each word a blade that cuts deeper than any spell. The masked magister steps forward, raising her hand for the killing blow. It's over. But the High Magister raises a hand, stopping her. No, let her live. Let her carry the weight of her failure. Let her wander the kingdom knowing she came so close and fell so short. That is a crueler fate than death. The elderly Magister begins drawing the darkness back, pulling the reanimated corpses with it. They claw at the air, still speaking, still accusing, even as they're dragged back into non-existence. The young woman remains on her knees, shoulders shaking, as the three surviving Magisters turn to leave. The battle is over. The Arcanum endures. The natural order restored. But then, quietly, almost inaudibly, the young woman begins to laugh. It's not the sound of madness or hysteria. It's the sound of someone who's just understood a joke that's been playing out for years. The sound of pieces falling into place. The Magisters pause. Turn back. The young woman raises her head. Her eyes are no longer violet and gold. They burn pure silver now, bright as molten metal, as suns dying, as stars being born. Thank you, she says. The High Magister's expression shifts from satisfaction to concern. For what? For showing me what you truly are. For proving that you'll use any weapon, no matter how vile. For demonstrating that you've learned nothing in 3 centuries except how to prolong your own existence at any cost. She stands. Blood still streams from dozens of wounds, but she stands straight, stands tall, stands certain. My parents taught me many things before you murdered them. Magic, history, strategy. But the most important lesson was this. The greatest weapon isn't power. It's sacrifice. The High Magister's eyes widen as understanding dawns. No, yes. She plunges her hand into her own chest. Not metaphorically. Her fingers tear through flesh and bone as though they're mist. And from within her ribcage, she pulls forth something that glows with light that predates the sun. It's a seed of pure, concentrated magic, not the corrupted, blood-soaked power the Arcanum wields, but the original force, the primal energy that existed before humans learned to bind and twist it to their will. This is what my parents discovered, she explains, her voice steady despite the gaping wound in her chest. The source, the wellspring. They planned to release it, to return magic to its natural state. You killed them before they could, but they had time to hide the seed, to place it in the one vessel you'd never think to search. Me. They put it in me, wove it into my heart, my blood, my very essence. I've carried it for 5 years, letting it grow, feeding it with every spell I learned, every battle I fought. I came here not just for vengeance. She raises the seed above her head. It pulses with rhythm like a heartbeat, growing brighter with each beat. I came here to finish what they started. The High Magister unleashes every scrap of power at his command. The masked Magister and elderly Magister do the same. 3 centuries of accumulated magic, stolen life force, forbidden knowledge, all focused on stopping what's about to happen. But they're too late. The young woman crushes the seed in her fist. The explosion of magic doesn't radiate outward. It implodes inward, creating a vortex that draws all power, all magic, all stolen life force toward its center. The 3 Magisters scream as they feel their immortality being ripped away, their accumulated power draining like water through shattered vessels. The fortress of Kravenhold shudders, begins to collapse. Stones that have stood for centuries turn to dust. Wards and enchantments fail spectacularly, releasing energies that should have remained contained. Gargoyles crumble. Tapestries burn. The great iron doors, forged with blood sacrifice, shriek as the souls trapped within are finally released. The young woman stands at the center of the maelstrom, her body already dissolving as the magic tears through her. She's smiling. The High Magister reaches for her, hand outstretched, not in attack, but in desperate plea. You're destroying everything. Without the Arcanum, without centralized control, magic will run rampant. Chaos will consume the kingdom. Then let it, she says. Chaos is better than tyranny, better than children stolen for rituals, better than lands bled dry, better than immortal parasites who've forgotten what it means to serve instead of rule. The vortex intensifies. The remaining magisters are pulled toward it, their physical forms beginning to unravel. The masked magister's face is finally fully revealed, ancient beyond comprehension, scarred by every spell ever cast. The elderly magister's darkness dissipates, revealing a frail form that should have died centuries ago. The high magister's emerald fire dims, flickers, extinguishes. Wait, he gasps. There are things you don't know. Threats we've held at bay. Ancient powers that require our magic to keep sealed. Without us, without you, the kingdom will learn to stand on its own. Magic will belong to everyone or to no one. Either is preferable to your rule. The fortress collapses entirely now. Stone and timber and iron all falling, crushing, burying. The three magisters vanish into the chaos. Their screams cut short as tons of rubble entomb them. The young woman feels herself fading. The seed's magic has consumed her from within, using her life force as fuel for its final act. But she feels no pain, only satisfaction, only peace. Her last thought, as consciousness fades, is of her parents. She hopes they would be proud. The fortress falls. The Arcanum ends. And in its destruction, something new begins. 10 years later, a village in the northern territories of Valdris. Simple wooden buildings, thatched roofs, fields of grain swaying in summer wind. Children play in the square while adults work and talk and live lives unburdened by the fear of being selected for sacrifice. In the village's modest gathering hall, a council meets. Not magisters, just ordinary people, farmers and craftsmen and merchants, making decisions together about crop rotation and trade agreements and how to handle a dispute between neighbors. Magic still exists, but it's changed. No longer hoarded by the few. It flows freely, accessible to anyone willing to learn. Some develop great skill. Others discover they have no aptitude and pursue different paths. Neither is considered superior. Neither controls the other. An elderly man, the village's unofficial historian, tells stories to children gathered at his feet. Stories of the old days, when magic meant tyranny, when power was measured in stolen lives. Stories of the girl who broke the Arcanum, who sacrificed everything to return magic to its natural state. The children listen with wide eyes, asking if the stories are true. The old man smiles. Every story is true. Every story is legend. The important thing is understanding what they teach us. What do they teach? A young girl asks. That power isn't something you take. It's something you give. And the truest strength isn't in dominating others. It's in sacrificing yourself for what's right. The children nod solemnly, too young to fully understand but old enough to recognize wisdom when they hear it. Outside, in the village square, a memorial stands. A simple stone marker with no elaborate carvings, no magical enhancement. Just a name, carved by hand, worn by weather. The name of the girl who ended the Arcanum. The daughter of the fallen house who stood alone against immortal tyrants and won through sacrifice rather than strength. Flowers lie at the memorial's base. Fresh ones, placed there daily by villagers who never knew her, but whose lives were changed by her choice. Far to the south, in the ruins of Kravenhold, something stirs. Beneath tons of rubble, in spaces that shouldn't exist, where time moves differently, where death doesn't quite hold dominion, three figures remain. Trapped but not dead, powerless but not destroyed. Waiting. The High Magister's eyes, still burning with the faintest ember of emerald fire, open in the darkness. She thought she won. He whispers to the stone surrounding him. She thought sacrifice and noble ideals could change the fundamental nature of power. But power doesn't change. Only who wields it. Beside him, the masked Magister stirs. Her voice is weak, barely audible. How long? Until the barriers fail completely. Until what we kept sealed breaks free. They'll learn. They'll understand that we were necessary. That our tyranny was mercy compared to what comes next. And if they don't survive, the elderly Magister asks from the darkness. If the kingdom falls, then we'll rebuild from the ashes. As we've always done. As we'll always do. Immortality isn't about living forever. It's about patience. About waiting. About understanding that empires rise and fall, but those with power endure. In the darkness beneath Kravenhold, three immortals wait. Wounded, trapped, but patient, because they have time. All the time in the world. And somewhere in the deep places of the earth, in caves and caverns and forgotten dungeons, the things they kept sealed begin to test their bonds. The ancient powers, the hungry entities, the horrors that predate humanity, all feeling the weakening of the wards that have held them for centuries. Freedom comes slowly to some, but it comes. The village continues its peaceful existence, unaware of what stirs in the darkness. The children grow. The crops are harvested. Life goes on, simple and free, as it should be. The memorial stands in the square, flowers renewed daily, a reminder of sacrifice and the price of freedom. And in the distance, storm clouds gather, not natural weather, but something else. Something old, something hungry, something that's been waiting a very long time for the Arcanum's magic to finally fail. The kingdom sleeps peacefully, dreaming of its newfound freedom, unaware that nightmares are waking. And in those nightmares, old powers smile. The end. Kindly subscribe for more.